Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? All right. Hi, I'm Srishti Gupta. I'm a product manager for data science products with Medidata, which develops product for clinical trial management. I'm based out of New York, and here today to share my insights on product management in data science. I'll start with my story a little bit. I moved from being a data scientist last year to being a product manager. And it was a really interesting journey and a really nice experience because as a data scientist, you sit in silo and you work on the development, but then when you actually come a little bit on the front end, you can see how the products or the development work is used in the business. So it was interesting to learn all of that and see that in life. So yeah, today I'll be sharing those insights. I'm glad to be here, and let's spend first 10 minutes to go through the material, and I'll share my learnings, and I'll leave last 10 minutes for Q&A, and I would love to hear from you also. Please post questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll get time to discuss that. So with that, let's get started. Today we'll be covering what is product management for those who don't know about it. And next we'll be talking about how DS products are different from other products in development. Why do we need more data scientists at SPM? I strongly believe it's going to be good for data science product development lifecycle. So we're going to touch base on that. And then finally, I'm going to give a little peek into the life of a DSPM just to deliver what is the actual work that goes into product management for any machine learning or data science solution. On the right-hand side, I have put a little meme. Most of us would have noticed that whenever we develop any model or any solution, we create a lot of features, spend a lot of time on it, and score them, etc. But then we have to throw all that away because it doesn't come out interpretable to the users or the stakeholders. And this is exactly the kind of thing we can avoid by having more product managers in data science domain. So let's start with PM. What is product management? Simply put, what a product manager does is he or she tries to understand the thought process of stakeholders and users and converts it into a very simple, easy to understand and a planned and disciplined solution. Product management usually involves 3 phases. So one is the product discovery phase, where a person tries to understand customer needs, the competitor landscape, and analyze the opportunity if it's worth exploring. Second phase is the planning phase, which involves understanding the mission of the product, prioritizing the projects, and creating a roadmap with deadlines and deliverables. And third and final step is the development, which involves communicating requirements to the developers, making sure there is user testing in place to understand if the product is going to have good user experience. And then final step is making sure that user feedback is collected so that algorithm can improve over a period of time and is more robust. Next, let's see how data science products are different from other products. A lot of time you would have heard that data science and machine learning and AI, I feel these are all buzzwords, but 80 or 90% people out there don't really understand what that means. So people think it's a magic, but only a data scientist would be able to understand what actually goes into it, which ranges from statistics to computer science to understanding, having the domain knowledge. And then second, data science projects, they are usually a long-term investment with no return guarantee. Other projects, you can define an endpoint and work towards it, and there's a high probability that it's going to be successful. Versus with data science, it's a more trial and error process. So you work on it, you analyze it at different stages, and then make a call whether it's worth continuing or not. And a lot of it is driven by the quality of data that we have, whether it's clean enough, because it's a famous saying that garbage in is garbage out. And then a lot of it is also driven by model's performance, and that determines whether the model actually goes into production or not. And then finally, data science products, they don't usually follow the product life cycle, which is going from early adopters phase to mass adoption to late stages, and then signing off the products. Their popularity usually increases over a period of time because the models become better and better as more and more user feedback comes in. Some of you may have already guessed that a lot of these pain points can only be addressed by someone who has had a data science experience or has been in the shoe of developers previously. From my experience, I feel that product management is learning it is easier than learning data science, given that the complexity that is holding data science, it involves understanding business requirements, or having the domain knowledge to cleaning the data, setting up the data pipelines, and then delivering a solution. It's a fact that 80% of data science projects or models don't make it into production. And a large reason for that is people don't really understand what it entails, or the work that goes into understanding whether a solution is useful or not. There's, again, a huge gap between user needs and data science solution in development. And all of that could be bridged if someone who has had data science experience is now working as a product manager or is at the forefront of receiving user comments or hearing from stakeholders and is involved in decision making. Next, most of the data scientists, they work in silos because a lot of projects are proof of concept. So there's a long-term, there's long research that goes into it with a lot of trial and error process. Only once it reaches a pretty successful stage does it reach the eyes of stakeholders, who in turn makes decision. So if we can streamline all that process and have the visibility early on, I personally feel a lot more projects will go into production and all of our lives will be much better. And then finally, there's this concept of diminishing returns with data science projects or machine learning projects. You have to understand at what point of time the amount of time investment that goes into the project becomes higher than the return you get as a user. And based on that, you have to take a call whether to pause training the model or put a plug on projects. And all of this is someone with data science experience would be able to much better understand all of these things. So now let's look at bit more in detail what a data science product manager does. We'll cover 3 stages, the ones we talked about in previous slides. Let's start with product discovery. So in traditional product management, what happens is people do user interviews, they do competitor research, market research to understand what should be developed, what are the unmet customer needs, what are the pain points, and then ideate on what solutions should be developed. Data science is slightly different because you are not only concerned about users' unmet needs, but you are also concerned about whether you have right data available to solve those problems. And so it's a 3-step process, and all of this is linked together. It's an iterative process. You start by identifying customer problems through user interviews or understanding product usage metrics by doing basic analytics on it. Then you brainstorm ideas with your development team to gauge the feasibility of those solutions. And then third, you look at what are the potential data sets that could be used, and if you have access to them or if it's clean enough to be used. Now, this is a top-down approach. Equally important could be a bottom-up approach where you start with what data sets you have access to. You brainstorm what ideas could get, brainstorm on the ideas, so what that data set could be put to use in terms of projects. And then finally, you identify the user problems that could be solved with those ideas. Next, let's look at product planning. This is pretty similar to other products because this phase involves collating together all the ideas that you have identified and drawing out this map, which is on the right-hand side. It's a graph which analyzes complexity of the product in terms of technology versus business value you get out of that product. So anything which has high business value, low complexity is an easy win. It is the lowest hanging fruit and something which should be developed. Anything which has high business value and high complexity are the things which would be nice from strategy perspective, but which are difficult to develop. So there's an importance in splitting those components up, defining the strategy, and developing accordingly. Next comes the ones which have low business value. If the complexity is lower, you can put it in backlog and you can think about development of those ideas in the future. But if the complexity is high, it's worth not putting the effort. So if any data science project goes through this analysis, it'll be easy to identify what projects are worth investing into and what projects are not worth investing into. Obviously, there is a lot that can go wrong down the road, but at least this initial analysis would give you a pretty good flavor as a prima facie. And then finally, product development. This is something that many of you would have been involved with. Any development team, it includes data scientists, data engineers. If you are putting the model or analysis into production, then it's going to include software engineers and testing engineers and release engineers, someone who can help you connect your model or analysis with UI and building pipelines and all those things. Product life cycle should follow an agile methodology where you iterate, you deliver, get feedback, and then iterate again. So it starts with the design phase and basic analysis phase, where you prioritize the ideas and the business requirements. Then second comes the initial prototyping phase, where you research on the solutions, build a prototype, and then get feedback from users to iterate. And then finally comes the deployment phase, which is building a solution, putting it into release, and then monitoring the model and making sure it's performing as per the needs and as per the requirements. Yeah, that's all. I'm going to open it up for questions. In the end, I would just say that the product life cycle of a data science project or a product is very different from other products. And I think we'll be able to have a lot more success with the data science projects if we have more of developers in the management positions and the product management phases. That's all. I'm going to pause here and see if we have questions coming in. Okay, so the first question is, what is the most difficult aspect of PM role compared to data science role? How do you collaborate? I think the most difficult aspect of a PM role is identifying the dependencies between different things and understanding whether the user is going to get benefited from what you are developing. As a data scientist, you're concerned with the development, accuracy of the model, and different technology, or whether the data is clean or not. But as a PM, you're more concerned about the adoption rate of that project, whether it's worth the time and the money investment, and whether you're going to get the value out of it. In terms of collaboration, and the second part of your question, Greg, it really depends and it varies a lot by companies. Most of the companies follow agile methodology. So you will have a UI team, you'll have a software engineering team, and then you'll have a data science team. And a product manager is responsible for interacting with all of them. So he or she will have meetings regularly to make sure everything is straightened out in terms of dependencies. And I think the key aspect is to make sure that developers spend least amount of time in meetings and then figuring out all these dependencies, and product manager can take up that work and straighten this out. So one is collaboration based on meetings. Second is having a planning meeting where everyone can come together, discuss what they are blocked with or blocked on, and then straighten out things. Hope that answers your question. Second question, can you give an example from personal experience when you have had to drop a product since it was too complex and the value wasn't high enough, and how did you determine its value? Yes, I can give an example from my previous experience as a data scientist. Um, that time I couldn't figure out the value, but now looking back, I think I can share a lot more examples. So we were building a model that would predict the probability of having defaults in a loan sanction piece. Traditionally, how this was developed was that a group of statisticians or econometricians would sit together and they'll monitor the results on everyday basis and take a decision whether to continue with that loan or not. Uh, Building a model was an idea that was pitched in, and being a data scientist, obviously, I was enthusiastic to work on it and get a problem that could be of high value. Um, one and a half year into the project, the model I tried a lot of approaches, a lot of feature engineering, a lot of different models, both nested as well as complex models. Um, Finally, in the end, we realized that the lift a model was able to get over human baseline rate was just 5 to 10%, which was not that high versus it was gonna take away the oversight that a user is gonna provide on those insights. That was one. Second was that the uh, the risk was very high in this process because the model wasn't very interpretable. Uh, Most of the times you'll see that people are concerned about interpretability and they want to understand why a result is being generated. And so a lot of research is going in there, but it's a very difficult problem to solve. And that's second thing. In the projects which have high value or which have high stakes, people want to understand everything end to end. Only then they'll be comfortable uh, putting off their decision making to the model. And that was another complexity because of which that model couldn't go into production. Now, had we had this analysis beforehand, it would be relatively easy to identify that it wasn't a problem worth tapping into. Yeah, great question. Next is, what is the best mathematics foundation for a data scientist? I would say knowledge of statistics. Um, Nowadays we talk about a lot about neural networks and complex models, but it's important to understand the underlying stats that goes behind it, because only then you'll be able to understand why a model is behaving in such a way. It's not enough to tune parameters and to get high accuracy. It's important to explain insights to people, and you would be able to do that only if you understand the underlying stats. We have time for one last question. So thanks, Alison, for the last question. It says, how did you explain to stakeholders that time spent on that research or development was being thrown away? I think it varies by big companies and small companies. Big companies have a lot more bandwidth and money as well as time investment. So they are okay putting a plug on a project which they don't see value in, versus small companies, they operate on margins. So there's very little scope to make errors or to tap into projects which are not worth the investment. In terms of explaining to stakeholders, I think it's if you work on something for 5 years and then you realize that it's not going anywhere, is a bigger loss, both in terms of money as well as time, than analyzing something 1 or 2 years down the line, pulling a plug on it. So eventually, if something is not going to be useful, it's better to save all those years of time and money that's going to be invested in the future. Not all the problems are solvable, and many of the problems are better off being done by humans than aiding humans in helping in the development. So yeah, that's the biggest I think conversation and the logic that you can put forth. All right, we are at time. Thank you so much, everyone. It was really nice chatting with you. If you have any more questions, please feel free to send them over to me on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to respond. But thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was really nice chatting with you all. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.